Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever the case may be on this amazing Sunday night. And Sunday night equals Redfellas, your main fellas, the good fellas, the bad fellas, as the case may be. Hope you're all very welcome. Hope we haven't been keeping you too long. Start the show. Wow, we want the Redfellas. There's a lot of guys. You guys got to be on time, man. It's me really, but I'm just blaming these guys. They can't say anything back. Have I got them on mute? No, I haven't. They're not on mute. I was going to say, I can say what I want to them. People in the chat, you're very welcome. Redfellas, Sunday night, even though it's World Cup, we've got a few things to get through about Liverpool. Basically, the whole purpose of this show today is going to be a bit of a mid-season. It's not even mid-season, is it, though? That's the problem. But it's like sort of mid-term. I don't know. What do you want to call it, guys?
Well, there's a natural break in the season, isn't there? So it's a good chance to talk about it.
Yeah, I guess it counts because normally this would be sort of December, wouldn't it? Yeah, mid-December, because we've got a 5-6 week break. So it gives us a chance to recap where we're at, who's impressed us, who hasn't, all the talking points through the games. We'll try to sort of have it structured and go through sort of the major games and the major talking points. And of course, it's going to lead us to the talking point of the season so far. Which is the news of the possible sale or the likely sale. Hope you guys are all doing well in the chat. Please like, subscribe, do all of that good stuff first and foremost as you come in, because as we know and as you guys know by now, it helps the channel grow, and the channel is growing all because of you guys and because of my wonderful fellow Redfellas. Conroy, hope you're keeping well. Hope you don't know, did you watch the World Cup? Did you go with my tip?
I did. Do you know what? I've got to be honest. I think Twitter was on fire today from the very get-go. It was a very good day. I actually enjoyed the game. I think the first game.
Here we go. Grizz needs to apologize for hyping. Why do I need to apologize, man? I was hyping everyone up. I'm hyping the World Cup up. I'm like a unpaid hype merchant. Don't worry about me. Ignore me.
Do you know the thing is, I actually enjoyed the game today. I think Ecuador were they looked. I don't know how much we can tell today of how good they are, but I heard a lot during the game and after the game is I've been preparing 12 years, and I was like, that's fair enough. But when you're up against certain players who are maybe just in a different level, like Caicedo, for example, or linked with him, he's a Premier League proven. I know he's only this season and end of last season. At Enner Valencia, playing at Fenerbahce. You can prepare all you want, and I think sometimes it's an unfair criticism. Some players are just on a different level, and I think you saw that today. Even the player at Brighton, Serramento, who came on, I watched him against Arsenal. He ripped them apart a couple of weeks ago in the League Cup. So there's just different levels, and I think today it showed that. But you know what? I enjoyed the game, and I'm looking forward to the variety of games we've got coming this week. I think we start the 10 a.m. kickoffs on Tuesday. And tomorrow it's the England game. So I'm not too excited about that one, but I'm looking forward to the Wales game tomorrow night. But you know what? I enjoyed the game.
Yeah, exactly. Look, here's what it is. It'll get up. And if it doesn't get up, we'll hopefully just get bored of it and look forward to the Reds and look forward to the Redfellas on Sunday nights. Well, we'll mainly be talking and trying to talk about Liverpool Football Club because that's the love of our lives. And that's what the channel is predominantly about. Hey, Kall says, Salam Grizz, 5 a.m. here now in Singapore, working the night shift. Got to listen to you as always. That is major love and major support and major respect. Thank you very much. These guys are definitely worth listening to. Steve, hope you've had a good week. Seems like we haven't spoken in a little while. You've been very busy. Hope everything's well.
A few things to take care of personally, mate, but there you go. It's always good to join up with you guys and have a bit of a chit chat. Chew the fat over the football, and to be honest with you, I'm more than ready for club football to come back already. I did watch sort of in parts the game today. I think international football is, in terms of the standard of it, has dropped off in sort of the last decade or so. So these games are more open. They're not so. The pressure's all in club football, isn't it? So international football is a bit more free, and I guess we'll see more goals. We certainly did in the Euros as a result of that. So I'll keep half an eye on it, but I'm not a big international football fan. It's the Reds for me.
No, that's fair enough. Cav has top clobber. Talk to us, Cav. What's this about? You're impressing a lot of people with your clobber. And now Jamie might not know the term clobber. In fact, let's ask Jamie, does he know the term clobber?
thinking about a cobbler, someone who fixes shoes. That's like the closest I'm
Any
getting.
more guesses before you read the comments and someone gives it away?
Okay. If we're being serious, I'm gonna guess it's style, dress.
Oh, okay.
I listen to some UK drill rap. There's some.
Jamie's gone up not in my estimation because I hate that music, but I know where you're coming from. I like it. Cav, top clubber, son.
Yeah, cheers for the compliment. Keep on coming, guys.
What's that like? What do they like about it? Like what? Which is it? The color? What do you like? Is it a brand name you're wearing? Maybe
Call maybe.
Steve's got the Penfield hoodie on right now, and no one's mentioned that. So, Steve, I'm just going to say I like your hoodie, mate. I seen a very cool Penfield coat the other day. So, just going to help Steve out there.
I didn't even notice that.
Thank you, sir.
The eagle-eyed Conroy. But obviously, people are liking Cav's color contrast.
Okay, Cav looks good as well. It looks cool as well. You know, they both look good.
Fair enough. I guess what it is. But people, while you're here, and you know, let's get into the. Before we get into the show, I'm about to, in a couple of minutes, announce the winner of the Diogo Jota signed print that our amazing sponsors are actually doing as a giveaway. People, if you don't already know, you're about to find out. We are sponsored by yourfutcard.com. You guys already should know now. Amazing prints, amazing cards like this made for your family, your friends, your colleagues. These are the guys to go to. They even started doing prints and flags as well now, as I said. Get over to their website. If you want to choose a custom-made flag, if you want to ask for a special design, go and chat with them. You press the chat button and you ask them whatever you want, whatever you need, whatever size, whatever color. These are the people to go to. Amazing prints, amazing cards. And as a special giveaway for us, they've decided and they want to give away a special Diogo Jota signed print. We had an amazing number of people that have entered the competition. So I'll explain that in very second, what we're about to do with that. But go and check them out. If you type in Redfellas when you get to the checkout, people, am I saying it right?
Yeah.
Checkout, not counter. When you get to the checkout, type in Redfellas, you get 15% off anything you decide you want to get and you want to get. Trust me. Brilliant stuff over there. But of course, we had to choose a winner. So what I've done, guys, right, is I've brought out the old, what do you call this? The Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, the Wheel of Fortune. Now, how this is going to work is obviously I had 113 names. Sorry, 107 got into the entry, guys. After that, time was up. About 6 of you entered it afterwards. I'm so sorry you didn't get into the entry, but I've got 0 to 107 numbered out here, and I've got the names. I didn't have a chance to put the names out in the wheel, but I've got the names who have entered. So we're gonna have a spin of this. I'm excited, you know, and let's see who wins that print. Here we go, guys. I can't even tell you guys the numbers. So if it's one of you lot, good luck. Number 80 is the winner. Give me 2 seconds now. This is the confusing, but I have to find out who's number 80. Guys, if you just while I find this, if you won this, what would you have done with it?
Oh, straight up on the wall, Grizz. Ready for
straight on Twitter, double the price.
Absolutely unbelievable.
I'm joking.
Okay, we have a winner, people. The winner is Liam Clark at Clark Liam 04. So congratulations, well done, Liam Clark. Exactly. I'm just gonna make a note of his name and his @ on Twitter. I will be in touch. And well done, son. Well done. Excellent stuff, guys.
Grizz, just before we get on, there's a comment there. Ravi's asking, is there a signed Grizz Khan FIFA card available to buy?
Do you know what? When we reach 25,000 followers, I will be giving out amongst that a few other things, bits and bobs as well. So yeah, That's excellent stuff. But I will get in touch with that winner if he's not in the chat today. Congratulations to Liam. You know, Liam's a guy's name, so I'm assuming it's a guy. If not, congratulations to her. And we will get that out to you 100%. I will get in touch with the sponsors. If you are in the chat, let us know, and then we'll get that sorted out. Recap time. I know we're in the middle of the World Cup, well, start of the World Cup, but it gives us a chance to sort of talk back and think back and assess where we're at, Conroy. And I guess the only way to start is right at the start of the season. We've done so many preview shows, and we were so hyped up for it. A few talking points, a few controversial issues with regards to the transfer window in the summer, but we done what we done, and I think we were okay, good to go. We had our concerns, but we most certainly didn't have our concerns after that Charity Shield, did we? We really thought, hello.
Yeah, no, it was quite. You take it what it is. It's a Charity Shield game, but at the end of the day, it's the two best teams in England from the previous season. You know, it is a good game to see where you're at, and with that performance, I don't know if we want to go through it too deep on the actual game details, Grizz, but getting a 3-1 win with Nunes coming off the bench and having the impact he did. Now, I didn't exaggerate it at the time because, you know, it still is, maybe people look at it as a glorified friendly. Can't even pronounce that there. But I thought when Nunes came on in that game, he really showed what he could do, showed the variety he can bring to Liverpool's game, especially with the balls in the box, that area presence, and also his pace in behind. I thought it was a good sign for things to come. That was my initial thoughts on that game.
I was well happy. I was well excited. I genuinely thought this is our season, Steve. Last season or two, I've always thought I've made City the slight favourites, and I've always thought we're playing catch up. But what was your views going into sort of the end of the Charity Shield and into our first game against Fulham? I guess we can probably sort of look at the end of that and the mood, and then go into the Fulham game, because I think it's fair to say we made ourselves overwhelming favourites against Fulham.
Absolutely. The Charity Shield game was a statement. I know, Conroy, quite right when you say it is a glorified friendly, but given that it's Liverpool versus Manchester City, it added a little bit of extra edge. And Linders has come out and said that the whole pre-season was geared around getting to a position where they could win that game, and clearly they did, and they did it well. But what it did was bring on a little bit of a false dawn for me. It was kind of, here we go, we're ready, we've just beaten Manchester City. And you do have to be honest, you do have to caveat this by saying City played 2 pre-season games. They didn't bother getting involved in pre-season, so they chose to use it for everything that Conroy said it was. And then obviously we went to Fulham. I think all of us to a man would agree that our thoughts were that Liverpool would be shootout with City for the title, and who would emerge from the pack to challenge, from your Chelseas, your Arsenals, your Tottenhams, and the teams that last season threatened to show some improvement. So like the rest of us, I went into the game, sat there hoping and wishing for big things at Fulham, and we just didn't turn up.
It was quite the start, wasn't it, Cav? I don't know. Can you remember I could bring up the lineup, but I don't want to go into it too deep. But sort of everything was fine. We picked our strongest team, and Darwin Núñez started off on the bench. Maybe some expected him to start. We thought, okay, no problem. The Fulham have played the game of their life. We'll go on to the first home game and really fix it. Home game against Palace. Núñez gets a start in this game. And it was the start of a very turbulent start for him, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was funny because the Fulham game was really frustrating just because of how lackluster we looked. And the only player that didn't and came on with some energy was Darwin Núñez. And of course, he got a goal and an assist. And you thought, okay, well, he's the energy we maybe need. And I think a lot of fans, even so early as that Palace game, were asking for him to start, which he did. And he started alongside Salah and Diaz, and you think, okay, here we go. This is the forward line for the future. And it quickly turned when he decided to move his head towards Anderson. I'm not going to say headbutt because that's been a bit dramatic, because it wasn't exactly. But He just had a moment of madness and naivety. He's new to the league. You know, he's probably not quite used to the pressure that he was under at that point in time. But again, yeah, disappointment continued. What stood out for me in this game was, unlike Fulham, where we were just attitude was pretty bad. This game actually tactically we looked a bit off it. There was so much space between the lines, between defence and midfield and attack. And obviously that's how Crystal Palace got their goal. They sort of, Eze drove past Fabinho and there was acres of space. And then it was a bit like, oh, that's a bit worrying. That's telltale signs that the pre-season's not gone as well as you perhaps think it has. Because them sort of things with this squad that played together so much, they shouldn't really happen at this stage. So that was a bit alarming.
Jamie, Cav says he saw alarm bells in that game. If I remember correctly, this was the game Nat Phillips stepped in because we had a few injuries, didn't we? Khanage got injured in the last preseason game, literally. And then Matip was out straight after Fulham. I don't know, Gomez must have been out as well then, guys. So then Phillips steps in.
Gomez was on the bench, Grizz. He didn't start. He put him on the bench. I think he was planning on starting him because he came on at half time.
I beg your pardon. You're absolutely spot on. That's exactly right. Was it for you? Did alarm bells set in right in the second game, or was you still thinking, okay, no problem, settle down? And also, Darwin Núñez do you think that's affected do you think that affected our initial results? Do you think that was such a bad moment for him? It affected our next 3 games, which we'll go on to, obviously.
Yes, and also, I believe if I'm correct in saying, in the Fulham game, Thiago pulled up as well for an amount of time that he'd be on the sidelines before eventually coming back slightly later, but missing the initial part of the season. The first 2 results I was okay with. I thought that you could take draws in games where you weren't playing well, so long as it was a blip of form at the beginning of the season. But then when we come to the Manchester United game, which I believe was the 3rd game, that's when, for me, it felt like a sucker punch. It felt like, as a Liverpool fan in recent times, that it's like, oh, okay, you never like to lose to your biggest rival, but the manner in which we lost was very difficult to take because of the players who were on the pitch and the way that things transpired, especially for the Sancho goal. I mean, we were at absolute 6s and 7s at the back. People looked like they were doing the mannequin challenge. Some were on the ground, some were flailing themselves. It was an ugly display of defending, and it really hit me there. Okay, all right, we might be in uncharted waters here. We might be in the deep end a little bit. And obviously the way that game would pan out with losing 2-1, with Salah having really a consolation goal in the end, especially to lose to Manchester United, who I think everyone at the beginning of the season would have rated below us. It, at that point in the season, seemed like, okay, things are not the way they should be.
From what I remember of this game, Conor, going into the Manchester United game, was the selection. It was a selection of Milner, Henderson, and Elliott. And I think I remember me and you speaking about sort of the thinking behind that. What could possibly be the thinking behind that? And thinking this doesn't bode well. Big, massive pitch, an absolutely highly motivated Man United team, who was still early in their, obviously, Ten Hag era. For me, this is where the warning signs were sort of really flashing out. Like, what is the thinking behind this? Fabinho's been dropped, even though he was, again, as I said, he was awful in those opening 2 games. I still thought he might have gone with Fabinho in this game, but he didn't. And as a result, our midfield really got overrun.
Yeah, because I think we mentioned, Grizz, the previous season we'd won 5-0. Was it 5-0? No, 5-0. And I think it was Fabinho, Milner and Henderson, I'm sure. I might be wrong there. So that's why we were speaking. We thought that it might be enough to get the job, even with Elliott starting. But to be honest, I've said this before, that's one of the worst results, one of the worst performances under Klopp, and I'll stand by that. you're saying that Man United team were rejuvenated. Not for me. That Man United team were absolutely on the floor with confidence, and Liverpool come and give them a gift wrap prize in that game. So for me, that was the most annoying result still in Klopp's tenure for me personally. We really let ourselves down that day. It was a pathetic performance. I thought it screamed of complacency from certain players. I think we're just going to, as Jamie mentioned, the mannequin challenge, the Ora defending, stopping a ball by Ora. It's like, have a word with yourself. It was embarrassing, that game. And I think the fact we even scored probably didn't deserve that. It was really, really the worst, in my opinion, one of the worst still under Klopp. You can mention Notts Forest, you can mention Leeds, but that team were on the floor and we came and gave them confidence. Of course, we were going to play tactical against you. They're not going to give you space, but you have to be better than that. So for me, that's still the worst one. Maybe it's because of the rivalry, probably it is, but I've seen Brendan Rodgers teams go there that were not a good team and put more and create more than we did that day. So I was very disappointed.
You know what it was? We had 2 points from 2 draws, and they had 0 points from taking an L to Brighton and an L to Brentford, and they went above us in the table with the win. That's how bad that game was.
Yeah, but they're not good as well, Jamie. Like they weren't even the one. You knew they weren't good. Like they just basically said we'll play sit in and catch you on a break. And if you talk about worrying signs, Grizz, for me, when a manager like Ten Hag, who's a good manager, but he was still getting his bearings in this league, done Klopp like that in that match. And I know there's other factors. For me, that's still the most disappointing result of the season, and I think it will stand to be one of the most disappointing results under Klopp.
Yeah, people in the chat are sort of really, I'm sorry to jog your memories, people. Some people are saying, Grizz, just when we thought enough of Liverpool for a month, you've started jogging our memory. But listen, we have to go through it as a family here. I just couldn't take the laid-back attitude by the players. Manda says, no fight whatsoever. Koza reminds us they lost to Brighton and got battered by Brentford. Just very quickly, finishing up on that Man United game with you, Steve. The biggest warning sign and the biggest, I thought, oh shit, in this game was the midfield. We can talk about the forward lads if you want. We can talk about the defensive frailties shown by Trent in that game and Gomez, I think it was, wasn't it? Trent and Gomez on that right side, the mannequin challenge, like Jamie referred them to. But for me personally, it was the midfield issue that was becoming very apparent by now, because let's contextualize it. We knew by now that Naby Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain are out for quite a period, and so is Thiago, and therefore we had 4 midfielders left, and one of them was Fabinho, who was left on the bench. Very worrying times.
Well, it was a surprise. Maybe Klopp had seen what we'd seen in previous games, where he'd been overrun by what we didn't at the time perceive to be great midfielders. We didn't know that Fulham were going to come with a combative and athletic midfield full of pace and power, and basically say to us, "We're going to match you. We're going to use that energy. We're going to use that willingness to run to overpower your midfield," and they did. And it was certainly a theme throughout the opening 5 or 6 games of the season. Listen, I've been a Liverpool fan for an awful long time, same as you. Results against Manchester United that don't go our way hurt more than anything else. And it was the manner of the defeat. Quite right, that players were just standing and watching people run off them. I don't like it when midfielders watch their man run off them and start pointing towards the back 4, telling them where to be to try and deal with the problem that they've created. What it did was show us that the problems in midfield didn't solely lie with Fabinho. The problem in midfield solely lies with a lack of energy across the whole midfield in terms of when we haven't got the ball and being defensive. But it also showed that Jordan Henderson was as bad as Fabinho had been in the opening 2 games in that particular match. He copped a lot of flack from staunch Liverpool fans that supported him over the years and been very sort of pro Henderson. It was a particularly poor performance, and as Conroy says, it'll be up there with the worst results we've had in the time that Klopp's been at the football club. And it was like it didn't matter. Now, football fans will forgive you an awful lot of things, but if you work hard and then you're beaten by a better team, they will forgive you that, and they'll give you opportunities to improve. However, that certainly wasn't the case against United. That they got what they deserved. They were better than us in every asset, in every aspect of the pitch, and it was abhorrent, pathetic performance. Not one that I can remember being as poor for many a season. You know, we talk about the 4-1 at Wembley with Tottenham. That was pretty poor. But we were building a side then. This is his side that just turned up and rolled over and got beaten. And it could have been a lot worse, to be fair. We got away a little bit as well. They could have really done a number on us. So, yeah, a terrible, terrible game.
No, that's a really good point, Steve. Grizz has obviously had some Wi-Fi issues there, but no, I absolutely agree. Just in my to correct my statement as well, it was Keita who started last year, and I was getting mixed up. I think it was Henderson and Milner with Keita, or it was either Fabinho and Milner. But I think the conversation up to that game was Milner starting, and I was okay with it at the time because of that. But yeah, I think Jamie, you said that, and some people in the chat as well. So the United game, Cav, I don't think we've touched on your thoughts on the United game. So I don't think you were on the channel at that time as well, thankfully for yourself, because that was quite a hostile after-match recap. So what was your thoughts on that performance? I'm assuming you agree with everyone else.
Yeah, and I can't add too much to it because you guys have hit the nail on the head with the performance. I think just one thing to add is, and I think it's been alluded to, we knew exactly what United were going to do in this game, and we knew exactly how they would set up and what the threats for us would be. And it's as if we just played straight into their hands. You know, we almost bring Rashford back to life. Do you know what I mean? We almost sparked his career, and then we killed it, and then we brought it back. You know,
I think we've done that a few times. To be fair, Rashford. Oh, I don't know if you just watch Rashford against Liverpool. I know last season and stuff. He always seems to have. Even if it's not a good game, Cav, it has an impact all the time.
Yeah, exactly. But it also was beginning to highlight that we had midfield issues, and Klopp was then starting to change things. You know, I'm not sure if it's right to say he started to doubt himself, but he certainly doubted the tried and trusted system, and he began to sort of change things because either people were letting him down or he felt the system as a whole wasn't working, and he began to tinker and move personnel around at this point.
Yeah, I think that's a great. You're back, Grizz. We know you had some Wi-Fi issues there. It's all good.
Yeah, you know, it is sometimes, but I don't know where you guys got to, so apologies.
Just the United game, Grizz. We just finished the United game.
Yeah, look, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to go off screen. I just literally couldn't take speaking about the Man United game. It was making me really angry and sick. So I thought, sod this for a laugh and went offline. But look, Bournemouth was our next game. And amongst a mental season and a very turbulent start and an awful start, let's not beat around the bush, right? And I want to speak about one player in particular who's been a shining light in this season of ours so far, and that was Bobby Firmino. I don't know who to go to. Whoever wants to speak on this game, because I've lost my bearings a little bit.
Cav just went, Grizz, but why don't we get your thoughts on this game? What did you think? Because I know we've had discussions in the past if Firmino and maybe it was time for him to let him go, sign a new contract. What was your thoughts on this game?
I just thought, whoever we were going to play was going to, the proverbial get it. Do you know what I mean? From Liverpool, we were going to be motivated and whatnot. But of course, no one saw the level of getting it, I suppose. But looking back, it was very much, I think you called it a fake scoreline. In terms of everything went in, Bobby Firmino was magnificent in this game, showed us that he has still a very vital role in the squad, maybe not as a star. And I think it's fair to say, I mean, I'll come to you, Jamie. I think it's fair to say that he has been the shining light of the season, one of the shining lights, along with a young certain Harvey Elliott, who also scored a wonderful goal in this game.
Grizz, I remember going back to the ratings show, and at that point in the season, we just hadn't scored or assisted. We just hadn't scored that many goals, period. And so my whole bias of trying to rate Firmino, I think a 7 when we were rating him, was based on he had over 40, almost 50% of the entire GA of the season in this one game. And it's like, look, we can't just take this one game in isolation, but at the same time, this is the only positive result we've had, really all with outstanding. But, what a renaissance performance from Bobby Firmino, the creator, the unicorn, the guy who's absolutely mad, laughing his face off. And on his day, he can absolutely produce magic. And this game showed that, coupled with the fact that Bournemouth rolled over for us, Spursy Scott Parker gone. And so that was all she wrote. And it was a weird, mad game, honestly.
It was. Did anyone, I guess, did any one of you guys think, okay, let's rock and roll now. Let's really press the accelerator down and okay, Steve's nodding away vehemently. Go on.
It's an anomaly of a game. It's an absolute nothing.
But did you think that at the time, though? Did you think
that at the time? Because that's arguably the worst performance from an away team you'll ever see at Anfield. Everything goes in for a reason, because the players are down tools, the manager are down tools. I've always said that teams are a representation of their manager. Scott Parker was round-shouldered, had given up, was done, and Bournemouth had round-shouldered, given up and done. And 9-0 is lovely to do. It equals the record, or so on and so forth. I didn't actually see that as a heralding the future. What was going to come? Would it be a massive turnaround? Would this be the catalyst to put us back, on top of the pile where we were last season, competing? It was such a strange game. Much in the same way that the 7-2 defeat against Villa was a strange game. Every now and then football throws up these anomalies, and that's exactly what this was. And I've said many times when we've spoken on Redfellas about how you judge players and how you judge a season, and I can't use the Bournemouth game as a measurement for anything, because they were so bad. That kind of hit the bottom of the barrel for them, didn't it? And they improved a little bit after that when Gary O'Neill took over and did it.
He's done a great job, Steve. He's done a very good job. That's the equivalent of a championship team. He has done very well. Fair play to Gary O'Neill, because Scott Parker basically said the team's not good enough to stay in the Premier League. So, fair play to him.
It's an easy team talk now, isn't it, Conway? When you get to training the following Monday, you've just lost 9-0. Your manager's been sacked. You're the caretaker manager, and you say, we've got a few people to prove wrong, haven't we? None more so than the manager that stood there and slated you lot. Show me a response. That's the easiest team talk any manager will ever have.
And it's I know I don't want to get too off topic, Grizz, but it's quite ironic that Gary O'Neill's made them more defensively resolute. I know they've lost a few games 3-2 and stuff, but they've scored goals, they've competed, and then they've got Bielsa coming in now, which is going to be very interesting, because you know what happened to Leeds last season as well. So that'll be one to watch as well.
I think the feel-good factor of that game, if there was any, and I'm sure there was some at the time, maybe we can't recall it, but there is. Saturday afternoon kickoff, goal after goal after goal. I think we probably watched Match of the Day for the first time of the season that weekend probably. And then Cav, for sure, the feel-good factor continues with an absolute last kick of the game winner against Newcastle, which overshadows the actual game, because, well, looking back, this is a wonderful result, because Newcastle probably one of the best teams in the league so far. So looking back, it's a wonderful result. But what's your overriding memories of this game, apart from the obvious one? Yeah.
It wasn't a great game by any means. I remember when the lineups come out and I seen Isak was starting, I was thinking, oh, here we go. New signing. We all know of him because of his how well he's done in mainly he's Swedish, isn't he? Yeah. And how he'd done in like the Euros and other international competitions is where I certainly first heard about him. And it was just one of those. It was like, he's gonna score, isn't he? I know we've just had a good result, but it kind of papered over some cracks. We've not played particularly well. This guy's gonna come in, new signing. There's the headline already written, isn't it? And that's how it played out. He got slid through and he rifled it into the roof of the net, and shown our defensive frailties. But we got back into it. Firmino just starting to show, well, this game after the Bournemouth game, starting to show how important he actually might be for us, even still, regardless of whether Nunes is coming or not. Obviously, he's missing this game. And look, it's not a great game. We're struggling. Newcastle are creating as good as chances as we are, although not many. And it's the game's, it's a bit of a snatch and grab, if I'm being. Certainly, I thought with the winner. I remember Carvalho hit it and it went in the roof of the net, and it took me about 10 seconds to realize it actually gone in. Yeah. But it's an amazing result, and it's just what we needed, because after the 9-0 drumming of Bournemouth, my mind instantly switched to the 7-0 win against Palace and how we went on after that, which was pretty poor. And I was thinking that game you really need to follow up with a win. I don't mind how, just follow up with a win and don't let it be a repeat of that 7-0 against Palace, whereby you just look like you can't score a goal again and you get bad results after a big win. So the win was the most important thing. Obviously, by this point, we're already off the pace. I don't know about you guys. I'm sure you'd all think we're in a title race and you can't drop too many points. We already had by this stage. So you just think you win by any means. And Newcastle had started well. Obviously, we know how they've gone on to be. So this, as you say, looks like a much better result than it felt at the time. But just get the win and just get the points on the board at this stage, and performance will grow. It's still early in the season.
That's exactly what we thought. And then we obviously came to the Merseyside derby, Conroy. And straight away, eyebrows were raised at the team selection. If we recall, Fabio Carvalho, Harvey Elliott, and Fabinho, if I remember correctly, was the makeup of the midfield. Darwin Núñez was the talking point in terms of coming back into the lineup. He completes his 3-match suspension. So a bit of a mixed emotion in that selection for me anyway. How did you feel? I thought Darwin Núñez, okay, but then the midfield just I couldn't work out what the thinking was.
Yeah, no, Grizz, I'm going to make this point as well. We obviously have the WhatsApp group, and I will say this. There's been more, let's say, debate before matches of lineups than I think there's ever been before. We're not really bad for, like, if it's the same team, this player should start. We've not really been a thing to comment too much on that. But this season, more than any, we've had debates before each match, thinking, I see a weakness coming here. And I think before the match, Chris, I was like, I can understand if we play the way we can play, keep the ball. But in hindsight, it was just not sufficient to work because we're going to get overloaded in that midfield. And to be fair, Grizz, you brought this up. You said you were worried before that match started, feeling that Everton just going to overrun us. And is it Onana, the Everton midfielder, started as well? You mentioned him I think in a voice note before, and you were absolutely right the way it worked out. He comes off at half-time, Carvalho, and it just looks like Klopp's got that completely wrong. Especially in a derby, trying to play that way in hindsight, it just looks like the wrong decision massively.
Jamie, Conroy's spot on in terms of we're definitely, I wouldn't say we are particularly big on sort of starting criticizing and moaning about lineups. I have never experienced this. It's not our thing. We normally think, okay, it's cool. We give a little bit of an opinion and we keep it moving, which is fine, which is normal fan chat. For me, this was slightly worrying now. This was like, the 5th, 6th game of the season, and I couldn't work out what the plan was. I think this was the first game, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, where we played an extra attacker, like a natural attacker in Carvalho in midfield, and because Bobby played as well behind Núñez and Salah played wide. This was the first game where we played we tried to change up the formation, but the personnel and the game status away from home against Merseyside derby didn't make sense. For the first time, what I'm trying to say is I sensed a bit of scrambled thinking from the coaching hierarchy.
Yeah, no, Grizz, I think that's definitely one of the things that shone through at this point in the season, where there wasn't a team that Klopp had put out that had played consistent for more than 120, 180 minutes. And so what is this, 4 or 5 games into the season? We're still trying to work out a formation in our best 11. This is not without saying that the players who we brought off the bench in this game were Andrew Robertson, Bobby Firmino, Diogo Jota, which goes to say there was definitely a way that we should have won this game considering how Everton has played the rest of the season. Because, United, Everton, the jokes that you've made before, Grizz, about we've given several teams this year their game of the season. And so, taking a point off us from Everton's perspective is, probably the best they're going to get if they stay up in the Premier League this year. But it's ironic as well because Artur was actually on the bench at this point. Remember Artur Melo? How long ago it seems that he was in the Liverpool multiverse, but obviously still with the club. It it got to be, for me, in that game, the one strict thought that I had was if Darwin had been suspended, he would have banged goals in that game. And he came close. I believe we hit the post twice. But again, another situation of not having the right effort, not having the right intensity, and missed opportunities.
The next two games, I believe we had a Premier League break. Can anyone recall what it was? Was it over the train strike or something?
Was it the Wolves postponement?
It was the Wolves postponement, but was there a reason? I can't remember.
Was that not the Queen? Was that the Queen?
Aha. Spot on, Conroy. Spot on. I want to take both games sort of together, Steve, if you don't mind. We have the disaster that was Napoli. Our Champions League campaign starts, and then we don't have a Premier League game, and we kind of fix it in the return fixture against Ajax. Two absolute contrasts in performance, in attitude, in everything. We just couldn't explain the inconsistencies at this stage. It didn't make sense at this stage, did it?
No, well, the Napoli game, we knew what Napoli were going to do, and Kvaratskhelia, if that's how you pronounce it, I'll give it a go. He absolutely tore us to shreds with pace and power, and then Zangiza doing Zidane turns in the middle of the park, because we just were not at the races. James Milner got booked after 8 minutes playing centre midfield. That was the end of his game, because James Milner requires to be physical and aggressive. He took that completely out of the game. Joe Gomez probably substituted himself at half-time. He was having such a mare. Probably took his shirt off himself and said, I'm not going out for the second half, boys. You'll have to do it without me. That was horrible. Horrible game to watch. 4-1 flattered us as well. They had opportunities to make that far worse. So we kind of brushed that one aside. We don't have a great record in Napoli, having never won there. And then we get two key players back for the Ajax game, one of those being Thiago and the other one being Joe Matip. And in the second half of that, we saw glimpses of the Fabinho that we know we do have. Their goal came from a defensive mix-up where our two centre-halves ran into each other, and Kudus smashed it in the top corner. Really, really good finish. And then we win the game very late with the Joe Matip header. But there were still problems in that game. We were still getting done by third man running, and that's been on all season against us, where you just basically work a 1-2 and then someone starts to run and they're in. And the Napoli game really, really highlighted that as an issue. The Ajax game was a return to something of some form, if you like, with a 2-1 win that gets us back on the road in terms of our qualification, but still loads and loads of errors. But I think the positive that comes out of the second game was the return of Thiago, and he actually came on against Napoli when we were 4-1 down, and he's the only player on the pitch that is demanding the ball. When you get beaten like that, players hide, players use other players to try and mask their own problems. All Thiago wants to do is get on the ball and get involved and be a part of it. It was really refreshing to see. And then obviously we get a good win against Ajax, and the European campaign starts up again.
It does indeed. And then I want to go into sort of one game in isolation. Then we won't dwell too much on the Rangers results, but that Brighton game, Conroy. Wow. What was that about? That was probably the most concerning, because I remember us discussing it and talking about it, sort of how the lack of control was really apparent now. We obviously know Brighton are a good team, and again, we made it the game of the season for them. Their manager's first game, I believe, wasn't it? They had Potter had gone to Chelsea, and the new manager's first game, lo and behold, puts in a magnificent performance against us. We actually go 2-0 down. We bring it back to 3-2, and the old Liverpool teams of recent years gone by see that out, and we talk about it as a professional game management. We've done the job. Nothing of the sort in this game. Nothing.
No, absolutely, Grizz. And I think it is Trossard who gets the equaliser at the end. The ball comes across the box and half volleys it. Hits on the bounce, lands in the top corner. But as you said, like Brighton, to be fair, I think De Zerbi's came in and he's not changed much, because that team already can cause Liverpool lots of problems. I'd say even when Liverpool are playing well, Brighton have got intelligent footballers who can drop into a just behind our Fabinho or whatever defensive mid is, and the overload there. They'd done it last season. You could tell that they were a team who were confident in doing it because we already had weaknesses, and they showed that within the opening minutes of that game. They probably should have scored another. Danny Welbeck's header is right at Alisson, should score that as well. And to be honest, Grizz, the rest you said about the game, we didn't hold on. And to me, I think one of the questions you asked in the agenda on the WhatsApp chat before was, when did you realise we're not in a title race anymore? Now, that question was probably roughly about here anyway, but the hope I had left in this moment was gone, because you get yourself into a promising position to rescue a game, not let over flatter this performance or make us sound amazing or look great, but we get over it. But we didn't. And to me, that was a sign that you're not going to win a league title, because you're up against one of the best teams who's ever been in the Premier League. Listen, I think it will still be Manchester City who win it, but you can't afford to drop points like that. And when you get yourself in such a commanding position, or at least such a good position from a terrible situation, to blow it like that, that was the sign for me. I've written down in my notes, between Brighton and Arsenal was the moment, but I'd say it was more Brighton. I was like, nah, because you can have years when we've won titles and we've been in it and we've not won at the Emirates, but to drop points like that, it was the moment for me. I just wanted to use that example for me. I'm glad you asked, because that was the one where I was like, nah, we're not in a title race. We're in a top 4 race.
I did ask all of you guys that in the question in the agenda, like at what point of the season you guys thought individually the Premier League is not our sort of mission, so to speak. We're out of it. For me personally, before I ask you guys very quickly, was the next game, Cav. For me, I was of the opinion, if we go to Arsenal and get 3 points, I still believed. I genuinely thought this was almost a 6-pointer even at that stage, because Arsenal had won every single game, I believe, at that stage. I'm not sure if they had dropped points to Man United. But regardless, for me, I thought, okay, to make up for the Brighton result, we need to go to Arsenal and get 3 points. Once we lost there, and the manner we lost there, in terms of, again, even though we played well, even though we played this new formation, there were just too many. What's the word I'm looking for, guys? Too many. There was no energy in our performance. And for me, that's the day, 9th of October, it says there. And I'm sorry if I sound like a negative nanny, but that was the date where I thought our league title aspirations are over.
Well, mine was probably the Brighton game. And just because I believe that to win this Premier League, you have to be almost perfect to try and get ahead of Manchester City. And when we drop that many points, and then shown that, the Brighton game, we shown a bit of character to get back ahead, and then to drop it again, I just looked at the team and thought, nah, we could improve, of course, but I don't think we're going to be consistent enough to go and get the high 90s that we probably need to beat Manchester City. Obviously, now it looks like you don't even need that to win the league, which just adds to the disappointment. But I think it's worth mentioning, just prior to this Arsenal game, we played Rangers and we won 2-0. And it was the first time that we looked to play the front 4 and switch up the formation. And it looked good. If it wasn't for the Rangers keeper, McGregor, pulling out a world-class performance, we could have scored more. And things were looking really positive. It's also worth mentioning that Trent scored a free kick in this game, and by which point he was, as an individual, being criticised from all sides of the fan base. And it was a blaringly obvious weakness in our team, that fullback right hand side position. And Klopp stuck with him, obviously, and he scored a goal in that Rangers game. And he kind of thought, okay, well, that might be the little bit of confidence boost he needs to kind of kick on. And so, the Rangers game, we changed formation, Trent and what have you. And we go into that Arsenal game, and you mentioned the word energy. And that was the contrast between the two teams. We had none, and they had all of it. They were flying, playing great attacking, fluid football. Saliba, by this point, was proven that he's quite defensively competent. And whereas years gone by, Arsenal have been in good form when we've played them, and we've managed to get good results regardless. This time felt a bit different. Arsenal looked a bit more convincing, but I was a bit excited because we'd switched to the 4 in attack, and I thought, okay, that's going to bring some energy to this team, because that's all the team really needs. It needs energy. It needs life. We've just been playing so slow and lethargic up until this point. And I actually thought we played the game quite well. I thought, especially the first half, I thought we were doing perfectly fine. Decisions went against us.
Yeah.
And, ultimately, I think cost us the game. We only lose by 1, obviously, so it's fair to say that. And in the second half, first half, we were the better team. Second half, Arsenal were the better team. We both created chances. We both could argue we could win the game. But for me, I think that just refereeing decisions really cost us that game. And it was a bit of a nail in the coffin with regards to the league title, because you just think Arsenal at this point, it is a 6-pointer when you think of it now, because Arsenal are going to be probably the only team that do challenge Man City. It was another nail in the coffin for us. It was a boost for them because they beat the mighty Liverpool finally, and they've got that kind of thing off their back, because they always lose to Liverpool. And it was just a real kick in the teeth, the refereeing performance, because I kind of thought the four attackers on the pitch, there'll be something new there, something exciting, something we can proceed with. We just needed the result, and unfortunately, we just didn't get it.
Eunice makes a.
Oh, sorry, on you go, Chris, on you go.
Eunice makes a very good point. Reminds us it worked well until Diaz went off. That was a major significant part of the season that we need to speak on very briefly as well. Luis Diaz by now is out with a serious injury. Suddenly, the squad depth wasn't looking great. We had issues at centre back. We had issues at fullback. Trent was having a horrific part of the season where we were questioning, so many questions to ask about Fabinho, Henderson, Trent, and just when we think sort of when will it end, we actually have Man City next, guys. And Jamie, this is mental. This is what Liverpool, we just can't understand. We have Man City at home in the next, and I think to a man and woman, we're thinking, what are we doing? How are we going to get out of this game with as much minimal damage? But yet we go in and put a performance of the season against the best team in the land. What is it?
Grizz, I'm a Liverpool romantic. I remember coming on the call-in show, and I told you when, the vibe had been in the Liverpool fan base camp that the top quest was over, just to sort of, jest at the notion of what if we were to beat Arsenal and Manchester City, and how would the tables turn of if then could Liverpool somehow revive their season? Obviously, we know how it worked out losing to Arsenal, but beating Manchester City, I'm just such a sucker. I was right back in with that little weensy bit of hope of, maybe we can turn something around here, because when you play Manchester City as Liverpool, right? They've been our new de facto rivals, not based on longevity or history, but based on the here and now of the past 5 years, with the two best managers in the world, Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola, them having taken, 4 and us 1 of the past Premier League titles, when, the caveat is we lost 2 of their 4 by a point. And so all I can summarize it with to say is, Peter Drury describing Salah's goal of Mo scoring in front of an exploding cup. This is Anfield. And you just, Liverpool sucks you back in, because it's just that force in your life where you love to love it. But, I think the hype would be short-lived until after the West Ham game, because, for me, going back to the initial question of when was it really dead for you, that City, I had thought, Arsenal, Brighton, that should have been it done for me. But after beating City, I thought, we came back from 14 points last year, but this team and City, the only 2 teams I've ever seen roll 15, 16, 18 points together on the bounce so consistently. Of those 2, maybe we've got a shot, but, obviously the Nottingham Forest and Leeds, if I'm getting ahead of myself, that was when it was dead and done for me.
slightly ahead of yourself, but it's perfectly segued. Thank you very much, because I'm going to come to Steve. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to come to you for this part. Probably the lowest we felt. I don't know. Tell me, because you're as experienced, if not more, in terms of time spent supporting this amazing team. In recent, under Klopp's tenure, let's just say, the next 2 weeks, we're gonna ignore the Ajax game for now, because we've got a few games to get through. People, if you haven't liked the stream, like, please. If you haven't subscribed, do all of that good stuff. I'd really appreciate that. Steve, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to give you Forest away and Leeds at home as a combination. I asked a question, didn't I? In terms of Klopp's tenure, where does this rank? That period.
You can go beyond Klopp's tenure. Those are two of the worst performances, football league wise, for Liverpool in decades. I mean, just to go back to the City thing, City remain the only side in the Premier League that not attempted to counter attackers and play their own way. It cost them big time on the day. Everyone else who gets success does it by counter attacking and a set routine against us. Guardiola doing Guardiola things didn't bother, and it cost him. But these two games, Forest away, the more the game wore on, and I know he scores in the 55th minute, but the more the game wore on, the more you thought, I can't see an opening here, I can't see us getting in. That there was the Virgil van Dijk header, which he should have headed goalwards. He tried to head it square to Bobby, and it doesn't fall to him, and they clear it. And then the lad we sold in the summer a couple of years ago, Womney, comes back and haunts us after
again another great day for our rivals. The day of their season, the best game of their season.
With all due respect, we've got to, I think, as a fan base, we've got to get over this. We're giving teams the greatest. We are Liverpool Football Club, and to beat Liverpool Football Club, we'll do that anyway. So that's always been the way. So I think I try not to get hung up on that. It's hard, but I try not to, purely because Nottingham Forest and Liverpool have a history that goes back to the early 80s. They've been out of the Premier League for 20 years plus, and they're still hating us for that 20 years plus. They come back in, the City ground is bouncing, there's not a space to be had, the fans are at it, the team are at it, the manager, ex-Liverpool coach is at it. We, again, don't turn up. They do all the things that Guardiola didn't do, which is press our midfield right from the off, try and hit us on the counter-attack by playing balls into space. Gibbs White looked an absolute worldie against us, and really he's not, but he did. And this lad who couldn't get a game for us for years, went abroad, reinvented himself, comes back, gets the winner off a rebound, and we go away from Nottingham with nothing. And then onto the Leeds game. Well, what can you say about that? What can you say about the Leeds game?
You need to say something about it.
A Leeds side that is driven by a manager that requires energy, and energy is the one thing that you can't accuse Liverpool of having this season. Leeds worked really hard. They ran 11 kilometres further in that game than we did.
Wow.
Some crazy stat like that. They absolutely worked as a unit. They took their chances. And then obviously there's the goal, the winner, which is short into play down our now much maligned right back position. The ball's played into the box. There's 3 red shirts, 1 white box, one white shirt in the box. He takes a very quick touch and a very, very early shot, giving Alisson absolutely no chance. Collectively, as a team, that's the worst goal we've conceded all season. We stood and watched them play 4 or 5 passes to work it down that their left-hand side, get it into the box, and then a lad nobody on this stream ever heard of before scores a goal that catapults him to icon status for Leeds going forward. So that probably, I said before about Bournemouth, the bottom of the barrel for Bournemouth was the 9-0 at Anfield. The bottom of the barrel for Liverpool was losing to Leeds.
Quite right. We didn't feel like talking about football or anything. We were, it was just like a funeral. We were getting sort of bantered from pillar to post all over social media, rival fans, internal fights and spats with Liverpool fans across various channels saying, we told you so, this was going to happen, and then others. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. Did you envisage it to be this bad at that stage? Just give us a very quick insight into your feeling like at the end of that Leeds game, because I'm like Steve, I couldn't remember being that low. And I remember you saying the reason why you was very low is because you couldn't see how we're going to get out of this.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. I think, see, like the Notts Forest game, to be honest, I think you can accept results like that, and not in the manner of that, but the one-offs happen in football. It does, like Leeds beat City at the Etihad a couple of years ago. Like, these results can happen, but when you have it too on the bounce, it becomes a theme. What is it? I can't remember the phrase. Variation on the theme. That's just the Arctic Monkeys lyric, but don't know why I said that. But yeah, that
listen
time.
to Arctic Monkeys, you just revealed live on air, like
mate.
you revealed Arctic
Yeah,
Monkeys.
then I'm not. Yeah, exactly, mate. Check it out. AM, what an album AM is. But on the game, to me, I was a bit worried, Grizz, more about I can take a result, but it's going forward, what we're going to do. And we've mentioned Jamie, Cav, Steve, yourself, we've all mentioned about Klopp scratching his head, trying tactics he's not before. It felt like because he was unsure what to do to get us out of this. Is rut the right word? Probably would say a rut. For the standard we have, it's definitely a rut. I feel like that worry, you could tell all the fans were feeling that because we couldn't see a solution. And that was at that point where I was thinking, things we're going to talk about how it's changed, but I think that was what caused the most worry, because you felt like even the manager at this point, he hadn't found that solution yet. It wasn't like, with absolutely battered Leeds. Those games can happen, snatch and grab. I still feel like Leeds hit the bar in that game as well. So Brendan Aronson was causing a lot of issues as well. So, and on top of that, with the Notts Forest, as Steve said, it felt like we weren't going to score. So that's when you start to worry. That's when you start feeling like, what are we going to do different here? Because something needs to change. And thankfully it has, but that was my mindset at that time.
Cav, at this stage, as people are reminding me, I had to go on shows on various platforms and wear full kit and sing "You'll Never Walk Alone," because at this stage of as this season, there was no way I was going to sort of give up and turn on this club. Even though in my mind I had given up on the title, the support had to be twofold and threefold, because this is what you do when you support a club when they're at their lowest. And infamously, I went onto a platform that I'm on and sang "You'll Never Walk Alone" as loud as I could, with as much passion as I could, and had the full kit on. It kind of worked, Cav, because what happens next is, again, we had 4 games left. We knew we had 4 games left before the break, right? And we knew the very bare minimum was to win all those games, which would sort of mean, hopefully, because the way the fixtures were, other teams playing each other, we would have been touching distance of the top 4, and B, we would have a passage through the FA Cup as well, which we won't talk about. We won on penalties shootout. Sorry, League Cup, which we get through to the next round. We won't touch upon that, but those 3 league games. Champions League, it would mean we get through. Sorry, I beg your pardon. It would mean we beat another rival in Tottenham Hotspur, like we done away from home, and we finish off with a fairly comfortable win against Southampton. Talk us through this phase.
Yeah, well, look, for all of the doom and gloom in the league, what we had been doing is picking up points in the Champions League, and we get to this Napoli game, and it's a game whereby if we win, we're through, we've qualified, and that is a milestone in the season, because if you get knocked out of the Champions League in the group stage alongside the league performance, it would have been even worse. So we did our job in that respect, and we were coming up against the most informed side in Europe, against Napoli, and we were, I think a lot of fans, a bit fearful that we were going to get another hand into like we did in the first game, but no, none of that actually. And this game was significant for me because so many times when we've done previews for games and post-match, we've kind of gone, have we turned a corner? Is that the turning point? Is that the momentum shift? Is that the boost we needed? We're always looking for things to really kickstart the season. We're looking for reasons why we might start to, find better form and better results. I feel like Napoli was that, And hindsight's a wonderful thing to be able to say that. But I felt like the performance we shown, grit and fight, and that's something that we'd really been lacking in the season. Even when we've had leads and we've lost them, we've, you know, come up against relegation sides and lost, you know, lost at home. Virgil loses his record, you know. We never had fight in us, you know. We were being walked over too much, and I felt like the Napoli game really changed that. But we knew what the task was. We knew we had to be up for the fight because we were going to get handed to again if we wasn't. And I felt like that just woke some players up. And I felt like that was a game where I was really proud of the performance, not just the win, but the performance. And then that obviously rolls into the Tottenham game, and you're going into the Tottenham game now with bit more hope, you know, a bit more excitement going into a game. It's not so doom and gloom, and that's combined with a Tottenham team that had no end of injuries themselves. And the game itself was a 6-pointer in terms of top 4. So it was all kind of momentum was shifting in our favour now. We're playing better. We're looking like we're up for a fight a bit more. Tottenham are now the team that's looking like the injuries might hurt them. And we can really pounce on that and get a good result and really, you know, kickstart this season in the league. And we do that. You know, we do exactly that. I think we play quite well in the game, first half, especially. Second half, in fairness, Spurs come back into it. They're not creating gilt-edged chances, but they're, you know, piling pressure on, and there's crosses coming in, and some of them, you know, Kane's getting on the end of, and others are just flying everywhere. But we're under pressure for most of that second half. But we've shown that fight again. We've shown the resilience. We had the points in the bag. We just needed to defend it. And I think this is the point in the season, because there's not too many games left where we get to today. I think that's probably where it turned. Certainly turned for me and turned for a lot of fans, where we thought, okay, it's been bad this season, but this is where the hope is stemming from now, I think. And we're going to talk about expectations for the second half of the season. But this moment in time is like, I'm starting to see the signs and the traits in these big boys that we've come to expect and not seen so far this season. So those 2 games in particular are really important for that.
Kadir says, Jamie, Klopp went back to basics after the Leeds defeat. What do you think about that? What caused this upturn, fortune, performance? Slightly more energy throughout the team, it looks like. What is it? What do you think in your mind that has made us win the last 3 or 4 games going into this break? Or are you still not convinced? And we'll get into sort of, you know, what we think will happen in December when we come back from the World Cup. What caused this upturn, do you think?
Well, obviously, the mental shift of when you get pumped by a team and then you can beat them, being Napoli, is a huge confidence booster, especially knowing that that game wasn't technically dead rubber. If we had won that game 4-0, we could have come out on top of the group. So it really wasn't all said and done, considering there was a mathematical possibility to qualify. But with the other games, right, and I think the Southampton game and the Spurs game to a degree really embody this. In the Spurs game, like Cav said, Liverpool held out to win a game for more than a half with a 2-0 lead. They protected it for the second half against Spurs. Okay, amazing. We should be doing that, but it was a new sight to see for the rest of the season. Derby, we get a penalty shootout win on my birthday, November 9th. I was absolutely stoked on that. Queven Kelleher. I mean, when you have a goalkeeper who makes, 3 out of 5 saves and a penalty kick shootout, it's absolutely unbelievable. So you have these things that are huge confidence boosters that are just naturally occurring throughout the games. And it's all epitomized and characterized by the Southampton game, in which Darwin Núñez has his most complete game for Liverpool, on top of Alisson Becker having an unreal performance. And I wouldn't say that it's a complete positive correlation for Liverpool in this last block of games that we just showed. But when Darwin Núñez is in effective positions and is feeling confident, Liverpool are doing well in the past 4 games or so. And in this game, you saw absolute dynamism from the run that he makes from all the way in his own half to get the little pass from Salah for the back heel for Bobby. If it comes off, it's one of the best assists of the year. You see the play when he drifts out to the left wing and he's using his pace and he just drifts and absolutely goes down that left sideline, gets a ball into Salah. He should have scored. He should have had 2 goals and 2 assists. But then we come back to the amazing play by Harvey Elliott. The ball is bouncing around. Harvey takes charge, gets it on the right-hand side of the top of the 18-yard box, perfectly curl ball in. Darwin, he shows his shot package. We talk about this in the NBA, a layup package for players with the different things that they can do to finish at the rim. Darwin has the one-time left foot, the one-time right foot, the header. He's got the volley. And so I think this guy will be an absolute huge catalyst for LFC going forward into the second 2/3 of the season, because if you run the math, 14 of 38 is about 36.8%. So we've played closer to a third than a half. And you see in the last 4 games, he's been dynamic for us.
He has indeed. Just wanted to sort of get your, well, I want to just reply to Pete. He says, recent results papered over massive cracks. Without Alisson, we'd have got nothing out of Spurs and Saints. We haven't been good. We haven't. No one is glorifying our season so far and saying that, you know, massive. But sometimes I find these kind of comments strange, because what about the goalkeepers that have had man of the match performances against us? We never highlight that. The Leeds keeper had a storming game against us and then went and cocked up against Spurs. The Fulham keeper in the opening game made crucial saves against us. These kind of things work both ways, guys. Let's be fair on Liverpool as well sometimes. We've slaughtered them, and we've rightly so. They deserve to be slaughtered at periods of the season. But let's not say that, you know, it's only one way and, oh, our keeper saved us, but our opposing keepers haven't saved their teams respectfully. We end this patch, or the break, I guess, Steve, and then we get the major talking point in the middle of a season. No, it's not a World Cup, you'd think. No, it's not sort of signings or anything like that, or Darwin Núñez even. It's suddenly the, I don't know, bombshell or whatever, however you want to describe it. We get notification from a reliable journalist, David Ornstein, who doesn't write the story until he has absolute factual proof of Liverpool owners putting up the club, in essence, in reality, for sale. Talk me through your sort of emotions and what you thought at the time, and was this a shock to you?
It certainly came, the timing of it certainly came as a shock. I think if you look further into it, we're on the precipice of a 2-year global recession. Is the football club now worth as much as it's ever going to be worth? Will we see the value of the football club drop off? And with certain reports suggesting that FSG have got their eyes on owning an NBA franchise, I don't suppose really the timing is the worst thing in the world. What is surprising is it's gone from investment to full sale, to then also releasing a press release to say we've had lots of offers of investment. Personally speaking, the full sale thing is a better option for me, because consortiums become a mess. If you sold 30% of the club for $1 billion to an investor, and then FSG plunge that money into an NBA side, lose interest in Liverpool Football Club, does the model change? No, because your 30% is not enough to take control of the football club, and you couldn't change the decisions that are being made. So from my perspective, this day was always going to happen. What it does for Liverpool football fans is it asks us a question. Do we sacrifice our morals for a football club owner like the types of Newcastle have got, PSG have got? In doing so, we recognise we may not be successful, we may not challenge. Or do we turn a blind eye to what goes on the notion that you show me a billionaire that's got 100% integrity, because you just won't find one. To get to $1 billion or £1 billion, you have to step on somebody's toes somewhere. What do we do? Do we sacrifice our morals, or do we say, for the last 45 years, we've been criticising what's been going on at Manchester City. We've now got involved in conversations about Newcastle. Can we be almost hypocritical and forget those things have happened and say, bring the money, don't care where it comes from, bring the money? That's the sort of moral compass adjustment that we're all going to have to make if the club chooses to go down that route. But it was the timing. The timing was a surprise. But we've all known this day is coming. We all know that FSG bought into the football club for monetary purposes, not to buy a shirt and a scarf and go and stand on the cop and sing about the club and love it and want to invest money blindly just to win trophies. This has always been a business transaction, and that is exactly how this is going to play out.
Conroy, timing aside, or maybe you want to discuss the timing, Steve's right, this was always coming. Is it, in your opinion, an admission from the owners that we have taken the club as far as they can? And in a way, that's quite refreshing from them, maybe. That, okay, hands up, we've done what we could. We tried to work the model that we had in place, and it's worked to a very much a certain extent. It's enabled us to win every trophy under their tenure. But now, cynics will say, now when it comes to this rebuild, which is evidently needed, they've decided that they can't fund it, and we don't have any sellable stars staring us in the face. And so therefore, either we need some heavy-handed investment, or we need someone with more heavy pockets. Is that the way you look at it?
Yeah, I feel like selling the club, let's say now, but let's say just say in the next year or so, next 6 months or whatever, I feel like all parties involved would be happy with that. Liverpool right now is the highest value that's ever been. So they're going to get, I think initially when taking over the club, it is always a means to an end. Let's be honest, it's not like the Red Sox where it's their, the pride and joy. I'm not saying they don't love Liverpool or they do not like Liverpool, but it was always probably going to be a means to an end. And if they sell it for, let's say, 3-4 billion, that'll be a successful turnaround for them. So they'll look at it as a success. Our fans and the club in general to continue to compete, especially with the kind of lack of FFP, we would look at it as a positive, depending on who we get, as Steve said. But, there's potential to get the right people in that we can really compete, especially under Klopp's tenure. So I feel like right now, especially the timing of it before, we're still in the Champions League, just been drawn against Real Madrid. But right now, before the World Cup, we're in the Champions League. We're valued the highest we are. I think it's probably the right time. Depending, I don't know how long it's going to take. Grizz is in the know, and he's not even sure. It could, the Todd Bowley thing's probably an anomaly. I think people refer to that. What I've read is that seems to be, because of the circumstances, that happened quicker than it usually would in that situation. So for me, I feel like it'll help. All parties would be happy with this. And I think, the cynics would say, Grizz, but see, to be honest, if you've not, like that gif, I've not got the facilities for that. Well, Liverpool are probably like that right now, considering the way it's going. You've got Newcastle, who've spent very well, or shrewdly, at the same time as others are not doing so well. They probably won't finish in the top 4. But the fact that they're already close to that right now just shows you the way it's going to go. So I feel like it's probably a good time. And I'd said this previously. I think I want to add to Steve's point. I think he's right. I think there's no billionaires. Well, it'd be very hard to find a billionaire who's got their, with no previous issues, let's say. But I do think there's a line, in my opinion, towards it, depending on who you get. I feel like that's the way I would look at it. They've still got to be the principals of the club, because I think there would still be a lot of fans who go to the game every week, who watch Liverpool every week, who would have a problem if it was specific owners. And as far as I'm aware, I don't know if you guys know, look, there's still the fans, the Spirit of Shankly, it looks like they're going to be involved in that from what last time I heard anyway. I don't know if there's been any more development. So I would agree with Steve on that. And I think, not to go on too much, but I think right now, when we've got Klopp as well, so what if we've done this in 4 years and Klopp leaves and he is the best manager we've had in modern era? You'd always say, well, what if he had the funds that Guardiola had? So from that point of view, I think it'll be very good to see what he can actually do when the purse strings are loosened, if that happens.
Me and Cav have discussed this to death, and we've done quite a few shows in the last week or two about it. Jamie, I haven't had your overriding opinion and emotion about the whole tenure of FSG. And again, like what Conroy says, I'll ask you the same question, because I just haven't heard your opinion on it, in terms of, is it the right time? Do you think they needed to step aside? Or do you think they could go again if we get like a minority, like you've put something in the chat there where Tom Werner, one of the principal shareholders, is suggesting that it's business as usual, and if a sale happens, it happens, or an investment happens, it happens. So keeping their options open, where do you stand on this whole debate, chat?
So everybody knows you don't say you're interested in something unless there's a number or a scenario where you put your hand down on the table and shake hands for a deal. The thing is, right, with the precedent of FFP being essentially fraudulent from the CAS case of Manchester City a few years ago, the game changed there for the first time. And then the game changed again once the European Super League was essentially dissolved before it even started. FSG came into this game as someone who had a good foothold financially, but then very quickly in the next decade or so throughout their ownership, the financial landscape changed. And there were state-owned clubs, more than one in the Premier League now, different financial powers in Europe. And considering the fact that they've achieved every single trophy they possibly could at the highest level, not including the Europa League or the Conference League, they can leave with their heads held high at this point. They've achieved everything that they possibly could with Liverpool. And Zuberi made a great point yesterday on the Call-In show. Considering all of these guys are older gentlemen with other adventures and avenues opening up in the United States, where I'm sure that a Las Vegas or a Seattle slot in the NBA will be co-parented and co-owned between FSG and LeBron James. I'm sure that that's their mutually based relationship that they have going forward in the future. But in the United States, no one ever says when the team does bad, let's get rid of the owners. And in the United States, the way that the national leagues are set up for basketball, hockey, baseball, the National Football League, the profit breakdown is very much different. The team that finishes last will take, without getting into the specifics, will take a very nice chunk of the pie home. That's the way that it's set up for the owners there. And so they went into the Wild Wild West. They came into the Premier League. They bought Liverpool. They'll be able to sell it tenfold. And I think now it's about brand image, and they take pride in the work they've done. They'll want to sell to someone who will be the right fit for Liverpool, who will be respected by the fans, but who will also be able to take over the reins of the job that they know at this point they're not prepared to do. And so I think it's time for FSG to sell. I think everybody will leave happily because they're smart people at FSG. They've done right by the club for the most part, haven't got everything right, but at the same time, with the trophies that they've won, I think it's fair to say that they've done a decent job.
I pretty much echo, if anybody wanted my opinion, I pretty much echo everything Jamie said in terms of they've done a decent job. I do believe they will try to find the most suitable new custodians of the club, whatever that means, however that is interpreted, is up each individual themselves. But I genuinely think we leave maybe not at the best of times in terms of where we are in the league and everything, but if you look at their overall tenure, as we said, from where they took us and from where we are now, we are in a very, very much better situation overall. But again, in the same sentence, I will say that they've admitted defeat, or I don't know, whatever the word is, like sort of an acceptance that they can't compete with some of the major owners of new clubs on a financial level, because their model is based on them not using their own money. And that's fair. That's a fair admission from them. Where does that leave you, Cav, in terms of the future then? So, excitement, or is it nervousness? How are you looking forward to sort of the second part of the season and this next stage of this sale, which, let's be honest, it's going to be a full-scale sale?
Yeah, I think the thing is, at this moment in time, we're not too sure how long it's going to take or what happens in the immediate future, because we've obviously got the World Cup now. So our attention to certainly match day experiences and thoughts kind of can go on pause a little bit. But obviously the sale might still be continuing to happen. I think the news of the sale or investment dropped. And I feel like the dust is settled a little bit, because now we're just waiting, aren't we? But we're, after the World Cup, we're going to come back, we're going to start playing again, and then we're very quickly going to be into a transfer window, and a transfer window that we need to, bring people in and invest if we want to, compete all the way in the Champions League this season, the domestic cups, and then get top four. So I think we're all just waiting to see what the impact is on the team. And, alongside that, you're trying to weigh up where we are as a team, because there's no kind of stability in the club at the minute other than, I would say, Klopp, because yes, we've had some good performances of late, but they are of late. I think what's been really good going through them games like we have is it highlights. I felt really good about the team, but what it highlighted to me is actually it was only a few performances, and it was only Southampton. It could, I know some people have been saying it in the chat, it could still be papering over some cracks. We could get back to playing and it being consistent again. But I think there were signs there in the team that we'd gone back to 4-3-3. Players are becoming available again. Núñez feels like he's settling and making a real impact in the team. Salah's getting back to his best. And I think the biggest thing for me is that the distraction of the World Cup will have gone. And if that was something that's playing on the players' minds, well, that's said and done, and it's full focus on Liverpool now. And I've said this on podcasts before. If that's been something that's affected all players in this league that have been going to the World Cup, well, Liverpool will be the most to benefit from it then, because we have the best players. So if everybody's players come back on a full focus, we'll benefit because we've got the best guys in the league. So there's a lot of optimism for me in terms of what we can achieve this season and the future. But then the whole takeover, what would happen in the January transfer window? Will we get the reinvestment? Plays a part into it. So I'm still a little bit uncertain. I think what I'm going to try and do, just me personally, is concentrate on just the football now, concentrate on what Klopp's doing, what the players are doing, the results we're getting, and just let the takeover stuff, happen in the background, because we're not really, I don't know how much we're truly going to know now until something's really concrete and certain. I think there's going to be names continue to be put into the hat and stuff, but we could effectively be getting to the summer and still be in the same situation. So I'm going to try not to stress about it too much. But when the news broke, I must admit I was a bit nervous because, we're at the peak, and so it's we either stay there and sign some, get some investors in that, invest in the squad, and we go even more levels, and there's not too many more we can go up, or we get somebody in and we just, we really fall off. So I was a bit nervous about the uncertainty, but now I think, the dust has settled a little bit for me, and I'm ready to just wait and see what happens.
I think that's pretty much all we can do, really, guys. We can discuss it amongst our WhatsApp groups and sort of on our social media platforms, and discuss it until it actually happens, and then see the repercussions of it. I don't know if you guys want to add anything in terms of the future under our, whoever the owners are, and what kind of owners. Well, I don't want to go into what kind of owners we want, because it doesn't really matter. We will get whoever we get. We are absolutely can't do anything about it. It's not out of our hands. We just continue. If we want to continue supporting the team. If somebody doesn't like the new ownership model or the new ownership, they are absolutely free to not support the team anymore. And those that will continue. And that's the main thing. The main thing is Liverpool Football Club will continue. And whoever chooses to support them and choose them as their team to support will continue to do that. A couple of people, Conrad, was there something anybody else wanted to say on that matter?
No, I think from my side, I think we've covered it quite in depth, and I'm sure if anything arises further, this will be the channel to bring it up and discuss it. But yeah, I think you've covered it very well. Yeah.
Miat, a couple of super chats. Miat says, can you talk about Neves and Lima for Jan? I guess in Jan I'll talk about it if there's anything on Neves and Lima. I haven't heard nothing about Neves myself, my friend. Lima, I know we have very much interested in, but that was in the summer when he made it clear his first choice is Bayern. That's all I know.
He's got a horrendous injury. There's a bit of muscle that sits between the ankle and the shin bone that is his problem, and there's no prognosis when that gets fixed. and I think he's on about 4 months out injured at the moment. So it would just be totally the Liverpool thing to do to go and buy an injured centre midfielder, wouldn't it? So
exactly.
I would hope that that's off the radar and we do it as a free in the summer if he doesn't go to Bayern Munich. So
that would make very much more sense. But guys, we'll just end up on sort of going around very quickly what you think for the rest of our season, achievements wise. What's the successful? What will be deemed a successful season from where we are? I mean, and there's no point talking about it from the start because that's done and dusted now. We're in this mid-season break. What constitutes a successful season, not only on the pitch but off the pitch as well? Very quickly, guys, in terms of January, are we looking for minimum a midfielder to come in, or maybe another position that you guys think, no, I'd run a forward to come in? Conroy, maybe start with you.
Yeah, I think at least a midfielder. I'd say 2 midfielders, to be honest, Grizz. I think we've discussed this a few times. And with the aspirations for the rest of the season, I think for me, top 4 goes without saying. Get in the Champions League. I've mentioned it before. You don't get in the Champions League, everything goes back. It's we've seen it before. It's crucial to get in the Champions League because once you're in the Europa League, even if there is a takeover, blah, 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 whatever happens, it's a lot harder to get the players in you need. And we've seen that. We've seen Manchester United overpaying and that, especially with our model, that doesn't always work. So for me, that's crucial. Additionally, I'd say, do you know what? If we can do something in the Champions League, that's a lot harder now. You're against the very veterans that are Real Madrid, who just seem to continue to beat us. Doesn't matter how many times we say redemption story. Maybe we should just stay quiet this time about redemption story and just focus on playing better football and winning the game. But hopefully we can maybe do something in that. I think we've got the capabilities, just need to turn up. And do you know, personally, I would say this, I don't think it's going to happen, but I wouldn't mind, more an FA Cup run, because I can't see us taking the League Cup serious at all going forward after last season and what I'd done to certain players, with fitness-wise and fatigue. I may be unpopular, I wouldn't mind an FA Cup, or just the reason I say that is I feel like I look at previous teams and they've always kept winning trophies, and I think it's not a bad habit to get into, even if it may be a League Cup or an FA Cup, but that's the least of my priorities, the top 4, and hopefully we can maybe do something in the Champions League. But continue what we're doing formation-wise now, I think is definitely going to help our attack. With Núñez on the left, we'll see what happens when Diaz comes back, but if we continue to do that after World Cup, as you say, some players have had time to rest. Hopefully we can kick on and get in that top 4 and see what we can do in the Champions League.
Guys, before we finish off with the other three's opinions and views on the rest of the season, we're about 40 short of 200 likes. There's over 320 of you in here. Let's quickly get up to 200 before we finish off. That would be so much appreciated. Steve, Klopp, what does he need to do formation-wise, bring in a midfielder-wise, and the ownership, as we said, we can't really control. That will take care of itself. Hopes and aspirations for the remainder of the season.
4th place in the top 4 has to be minimum. It is a disaster recovery plan, given that we expected to be much further up the league, but it is what it is, and we'll have to make sure that would be catastrophic in terms of the project for the short to medium term if we didn't make Champions League football. With regards to players and what have you, we need a centre midfielder. We know we need a centre midfielder. I think shape-wise, we've made some of the adjustments we've made this season on the premise that we go out and get this Jude Bellingham signing done in the summer, because we're not bringing Jude Bellingham into the football club to play him in the same shape midfield when we had Henderson, Fabinho and Wijnaldum. That would be a total waste of the guy's talents. If we get him, he will be more box-to-box, he will be more dynamic. That in itself would be really difficult to do, to land on a team. And it depends how far into the transfer window that signing could take. So I think we're already starting to see a change in shape. I think when everybody's fit, I think the 4-3-3 is difficult because of the lack of athleticism in the centre of the park. So I think we're starting to see a change. The club have recognised this, and this is why we're going with this thing that becomes a 4-3-3, it becomes a 4-2-4, it becomes a 4-4-2 at the flick of the switch. It's multi-purpose, it does lots of different things, and I think we'll see a bit more of that for the remainder of the season. In terms of Europe, let's see how far we can get, and I don't think we can afford to throw senior players at the League Cup, because the league campaign and getting into the top 4 is absolutely paramount, and we'll have plenty more 6-pointers coming up against sides that want that too.
Yeah, pretty much same questions to you, Jamie. If you was listening, if you wasn't, good luck.
No, of course, Chris.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Looking at how many games you play once you're in the Champions League knockout, and it's 6 and then the final. But look, for Liverpool, the basic median thing of what we have to do to be able to be a successful club to win trophies is to finish in the top 4 so that we can get that Champions League revenue pool. And so bare minimum is top 4. And then look, let's become one of those teams that even on a downturn season, we can pick up one cup. We know the Premier League isn't within reach at this point. The League Cup happens, it happens. If the FA Cup happens, it happens. If the Champions League were to be the most opportune path to a cup and top 4 is there, take it. The most opportune cup with the top 4 will be a saving grace for Liverpool, because at this point, with the players, the manager that we have, we should be winning trophies year in and year out. That should be our goal.
Cav, finish off with you, sir.
Well, I echo what the guys say expectation-wise, top 4 and a trophy, whichever that is. But what I would say is Liverpool don't do anything the easy way. Never have, we never will. And look, there might be tempting fate here, but I feel like we've had the bad times already this season. And I'm ready for this team to start fighting. I'm ready for momentum to build. I'm ready for Klopp punches to the cop. I'm ready for European nights. This season could still be a success despite all that's gone. And we've got people in our team, the likes of Nunes and Salah and Virgil, that can drag us to places, and give us them highs again. So I'm optimistic. I really am. I'm trying to convince myself as I say it, but I feel like if we get a bit of silverware this season and we get top 4, fine. That's good enough. We're still getting trophies in the bag. We can still say we're the most successful team in England, and we just move on. But I would just like Klopp to really find his confidence again, find a system, stick with it. Let's have a clear idea as to what our 2.0 is for this Klopp team. Let's get the Naby things sorted early. Yeah, he's off in the summer. Yeah, that's cool. Ox is leaving. Yeah, that's cool. We get a midfielder in, and we start to see what the future holds with this new team. That's what I'm looking for amongst the trophies.
Absolutely. Bit of positivity. Always good to end with a bit of positivity. Shaka sends in a super chat, says Yusuf Moukoko and Kall Kone, good value for January. I mean, Yusuf Moukoko will be free if he doesn't extend with Dortmund. I know we were interested in 2 years ago when he was even younger, 17, I believe at the time. I think he will sign on again with Dortmund, but if not, that would be a tremendous coup. And Kude Kone of Borussia Mönchengladbach is very much a good option, and I know we have interested in, but it's more for summer, I believe. But yeah, I agree with your overall assessment of those 2 players. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much, Conroy, Steve, Jamie, Cav. We had to do this. We had to jog our memories and go through the rough patches. But just like our program, and just like the end of just before the World Cup, we ended with a bit of positivity. The Reds won 4 games, I believe, in a row. And Cavs ended the show by saying he's very confident about the future. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like on the stream. If you haven't, please like or leave on the stream. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. All of that good stuff. We will be back. We have a draft lined up in midweek some point. Watch out for that. Mr. Evan has been very busy in the background. We have a World Cup special draft, and we will let you know when that will take place. It may even take place next week. We see how it goes. I'll be back during the week with I've got a watch along. I've got a watch along for tomorrow. England, Iran, man. You know what I mean? I'm going for this, man. Watch along. My first
wait, hold on. What accent was that? Because that wasn't English and that.
That's the United States game tomorrow night.
That's what I thought you were going for, Grizz.
I'm not gonna lie. I lost control. I lost control.
I killed your flow.
I'm not gonna lie. I lost control. So wherever the accent, wherever you think it was that. But listen, people, love you and leave you. This has been Redfellas on a Sunday night. We out of here. Take care.